So with the dumbbell swing, it's basically taking that pendulum type movement and going right overhead with it.
Excellent arms? Check. Strong backs? Check. Magnificent legs? Check. So what area didn't receive much attention in the Bronze Era? Aha, that would be the chest. If you're wondering why, let's find out. Number 10. It had a lot to do with Eugen Sandow. Considered the father of modern bodybuilding, Eugen Sandow changed the course of live bodybuilding competitions forever into what we know today. You see, the old school strongmen were usually performing for crowds, and many opted for tricks to exaggerate their strength. However, there were respected lifters of the time who performed legitimate feats of strength. We'll talk about them later in this video. For now, let's focus on Sandow. You see, Sandow boasted the perfect body. Wearing nothing more than a fig leaf, gladiator sandals, and a handlebar mustache, Eugen Sandow was once an image of masculine perfection. He was the celebrity poster boy who made fitness popular. Sandow was a very modern man. As a body obsessive, he gave us the idealized image of ripped abs that have become the holy grail for many body-conscious men. Before him, no one believed that a human being could achieve the sculpted perfection of classical art. But how did he achieve a body that's worth immortalizing? Well, his method involved a comprehensive approach to training, emphasizing targeted exercises to develop specific muscle groups, ensuring that each contributed to the overall aesthetic he sought to achieve. In his groundbreaking books, Strength and How to Obtain It, and Sandow's System of Physical Training, he detailed innovative training methods to sculpt the body in alignment with his aesthetic goals. He emphasized a tailored approach to exercise, prescribing specific weights and repetition ranges designed to develop muscles symmetrically and harmoniously, mirroring the classic statues he admired. Sandow introduced the concept of progressive resistance training, advocating for the gradual increase of weight to challenge muscles while maintaining a focus on form and balance. His system also recommended a variety of exercises to target all muscle groups effectively, ensuring each contributed to the desired aesthetic physique. Sandow's methods were pioneering, laying the foundation for modern bodybuilding techniques that balance strength with visual symmetry. There's no arguing that Sandow truly managed to turn his body into that of a Greek god. But if you take a close look at the statues, you'll notice one thing that'll help you explain why Bronze-era lifters had flat chests. The statues show powerful-looking shoulders, arms, and abs. However, their chests are pretty flat and don't stick out of the torso, whereas bodybuilders of the Silver era developed thick chests which bulged out of the torso and clearly dominated the upper body. Sandow cracked the code and worked on exercises to develop his chest like the statues. He then started promoting bodybuilding in England to great success. He allowed audiences to enjoy viewing his physique in muscle display performances. Sandow was so successful at flexing and posing his physique that he later created several businesses around his fame and was among the first to market products branded with his name. He was credited with inventing and selling the first exercise equipment for the masses: machine dumbbells, spring pulleys, and tension bands. And after already making a name for himself by flexing and posing in front of jam-packed audiences, Sandow organized the first bodybuilding contest on September 14, 1901, called the Great Competition. The event consisted of 66 competitors from across the British Isles, selected as the strongest and having the best physique. The men stood on stage to be inspected by judges, all wearing black tights, leather belts, and of course, leopard skin loincloths. The three finalists received the first Sandow statues in bronze, silver, and gold. Judged by Sandow, Sir Charles Laws, and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the contest was a great success and many bodybuilding enthusiasts were turned away due to the overwhelming number of audience members. Being the most influential figure in the bronze bodybuilding era, he judged contestants according to his own standards. So it comes as no surprise that bodybuilders of that time took inspiration from Sandow and tried to develop his ideal physique with a flat chest. Number 9. Influence of ancient statues. Bodybuilders of the Bronze Era were inspired by the aesthetics of ancient Greek and Roman statues, which emphasized balanced proportions rather than sheer muscle size. This classical ideal influenced their training goals, focused on achieving a harmonious physique rather than targeting specific muscle groups like the chest for exaggerated development. We have a prime example of Eugen Sandow. He didn't want to take the path taken by others. He wanted to create a different aesthetic. For that, he decided to take inspiration from ancient Roman and Greek statues. Sandow was so committed to achieving this goal that he even traveled to Italy several times to study these statues and take measurements so he could sculpt his own physique according to their proportions. Sandow admired the ancient Greeks' understanding of the human body, believing they knew how to achieve perfect physical form even without modern science. He noted the Greeks observed that muscles grow stronger and bigger with use, and that a body's overall strength depends on the health of its smallest parts, or atoms. To achieve what he called the Grecian ideal, Sandow studied Greek statues like the Dying Gaul and Hercules' Farnese, using them as models for his training routines aimed at sculpting the ideal physique. He wrote 2 books, Strength and How to Obtain It, and Sandow on Physical Training, which laid out detailed plans based on his studies of Greek art and his own training methods. Sandow's work marked a significant shift in how athletes approached fitness, reintroducing ancient Greek ideals of beauty and strength to modern society. He believed in the importance of a systematic approach to physical training, something he felt was lacking in his time. Sandow's methods are still foundational in weightlifting and bodybuilding today, influencing the exercises and techniques used by modern athletes. He wasn't just following the Greeks' lead, he was bringing their concepts of physical beauty and strength into the modern era, setting the stage for the development of bodybuilding as we know it. The legacy of this ancient influence is still evident in the way we view physical beauty today. The statues that inspired the Bronze Era bodybuilders, figures like the Discobolus, the Doryphorus, and the Venus de Milo remain icons of physical perfection, celebrated not just for the individual excellence of their parts, but for their overall harmony and proportion. Number 8. Training techniques were primitive. You might be thinking how primitive training techniques of the Bronze Era would be. Surely not anything remotely close to buying a calf and lifting it every day until it's a bull. Back in the day, the concept of a gym packed with state-of-the-art equipment was non-existent. The bodybuilders of the late 19th to early 20th century had to make do with what was available, and that wasn't much more than barbells and dumbbells. There were no racks, benches, or machines. In fact, all exercises essentially started by picking weight off the floor. And yet, they turned those limitations into opportunities, inventing exercises that are still incorporated into our workouts today. Talk about leaving a legacy, right? These guys were hitting full-body workouts at least 3 days a week, sometimes even every day, all without the luxury of protein shakes waiting for them post-workout. They focused on progressive resistance, a fancy term for gradually upping the ante by lifting heavier weights over time. This wasn't about ego lifting or showing off who could bench the most. It was about consistency, dedication, and the art of pushing just enough to see gains without burning out. Moreover, they squatted in all sorts of ways: back squats, hack squats, you name it. And let's not forget the overhead pressing, from the classical two-handed standing press to the downright impressive one-handed barbell bent press. Yes, one-handed. And of course, they didn't have bench press. We know that bench press is ideal to increase strength, improve endurance, and tone the muscles of the upper body. But the bench press wasn't popular among bodybuilders until the 1940s, though George Hackenschmidt is credited with inventing the compound exercise in 1898. The early lifters did plenty of pressing movements, but it was all overhead pressing variations. What this means is that they were performing pressing variations while standing, which were doing wonders for the shoulders but not their chests. Interestingly, the only pressing exercise Eugen Sandow included in his training book was a standard push-up. What's truly remarkable about these Bronze Era titans is not just the muscle they built, but how they built it. With nothing but grit, determination, and a bit of creativity, they set the stage for everything we know and love about bodybuilding today. They remind us that it's not about having the fanciest equipment or the latest supplements. At the heart of it, bodybuilding is about pushing your limits, embracing the journey, and yes, a bit of that good old-fashioned ingenuity. Number 7. It was the time of strongmen. The bodybuilders of the Bronze Era were strongmen first and foremost. Their training was geared towards functional strength that could be demonstrated in feats of lifting, carrying, and performing. This focus on practical strength meant that exercises were designed to build power and endurance across the entire body, rather than isolating specific muscle groups for aesthetic development. The types of lifts and exercises popular during the Bronze Era, such as the clean and jerk, deadlifts, and farmer's walks, are a testament to this emphasis. These exercises build incredible strength and resilience, but don't necessarily lead to the development of a large, pronounced chest. Instead, they contribute to a more rugged, all-around strongman physique. This focus on functional strength was also a reflection of the times, and they were pretty darn good at it. For instance, we can take a look at the legendary figure Louis Cyr, dubbed the strongest man who ever lived. Cyr's exploits included lifting a platform on his back holding 18 men, a total weight of over 4,300 pounds. Imagine the sheer force and stability required, engaging every muscle fiber from his legs to his broad but not overly pronounced chest. And then
anyone who defeats this man will be awarded 1,000 pounds! Louis Cyr!
And then there was Arthur Saxon, a German strongman born in 1878. His height was 5 feet 10 inches and he weighed only around 200 pounds, making him one of the lightest strongmen of that time. However, he was a man whose name became synonymous with raw, unadulterated power. He performed several lifts that have not been matched even today. For instance, the two hands anyhow. He managed an unbelievable 448 pounds. As the name suggests, this back-breaking lift requires using two hands to lift separate weights overhead using any style. So Arthur first started by bent pressing a 336-pound barbell, and while he held the barbell overhead, he squatted down to pick up a 112-pound kettlebell with his other hand up to his shoulder. Not only that, Saxon also performed the heaviest bent press ever at 386 pounds. How crazy is that, right? The strongmen of those times trained with a purpose beyond mere appearance. They lifted heavy stones, bent iron bars, and performed the Tomb of Hercules, a lift where they would lie on their backs and lift platforms or heavy animals. Many of these strongmen performed their feats in circuses and public demonstrations, where the ability to perform impressive acts of strength was more important than the specific appearance of any one muscle group. The chest, while important for certain lifts, was not the primary focus of their training or their performances. Number 6. Physical culture was a way of life. If you look at the physiques of old-time strongmen, you'll see the pec development is notably absent. The men had very developed shoulders, yoke, core, and legs, but notably absent pec development. Yet they had very proportionate physiques that inherently looked strong. In fact, they were phenomenally strong men, capable of pressing 300-plus pounds over their heads and performing physical feats that are rarely equaled today. They had immense shoulder development, and while they certainly had a defined pectoral muscle, there was zero of the balloon look that you see decades later in bodybuilding. Also, many of them were also champion-level wrestlers as well. Arthur Saxon, Otto Arco, George Hackenschmidt. Wrestling was a common practice in those days for men, and strongmen always excelled at it. The mindset of these pioneering strongmen was radically different from that of contemporary athletes. In an era predating the formal study of exercise science or kinesiology, they embodied a philosophy where physical and mental strength were inseparable. These were the original lifting philosophers, for whom strength training was about cultivating total body power and enduring mental fortitude, enabling a man to excel in all of life's arenas. Their approach to fitness was holistic, valuing overall prowess and resilience over the specialization and segmentation seen in today's fitness culture. This philosophical underpinning shaped their training methodologies, emphasizing the development of functional strength that was applicable both in and out of the gym. Physical culture was the development of the man as a whole being. The form of the body was to reflect its function, and function meant immense practical strength and the ability to apply it to anything. Also, there are no records of any kind of warrior class doing anything like bench press or chest press. This was not because ancient and ancestral men did not consciously think the chest muscles were not important. Rather, they did not think of them at all. A man's physique and fitness was determined by his ability to fight, lift, and move. Much like the physical culturists of the 1800s, ancient man was primarily concerned with fighting, grappling, using weapons, wearing armor, and being hard to kill. So they used to think that shoulders were important, the back was extremely important, the legs were crucial for strength, but the pectoral muscles were not really necessary. It's hard to not imagine that if the lifters of the Bronze Era were judged by modern bodybuilding standards, they'd be considered shoulder dominant and be told they need to bring their pectorals up. Times have changed so much. Number 5. There was no use of anabolic steroids. Let's not beat around the bush here. One of the colossal, undeniable reasons our Bronze Era titans didn't puff up their chests to the sky-high dimensions seen in later eras boils down to a straightforward fact. They didn't have anabolic steroids. That's right, folks. The secret sauce, the magic beans, you get the picture. Today, the use of performance-enhancing drugs in bodybuilding can sometimes be as common as protein shakes in a bodybuilder's daily routine. But back in the days of yore, not a steroid in sight. Now, before we dive deeper, let's clarify something. Anabolic steroids, for those who might not be in the know, are synthetic variants of the male sex hormone testosterone. They're used to increase muscle mass, enhance athletic performance, and yes, give users those bulging chests that could serve as makeshift shelves. Today, some of the most common PEDs include substances with names that might sound like villains in a sci-fi saga, but are, in fact, quite popular in certain bodybuilding circles. Back in the Bronze Era, though, our lifting forefathers had to rely on natural methods to build their physiques. This meant their chests were developed through sheer grit, determination, and a diet that was as clean as the driven snow. Well, as clean as it could get back then. Their supplements are more likely to be raw eggs, fresh milk, and a steak the size of a small chariot, not the pharmacological cornucopia available today. Consider Eugen Sandow, our paragon of physical culture. His regime was all about balanced training, proper nutrition, and rest. Sandow's idea of performance enhancement was a cold plunge after a workout, not a needle in the buttock. Similarly, George Hackenschmidt, the Russian lion himself, swore by a diet rich in raw foods and nuts. These guys were munching on almonds and downing raw yolks when the most complex chemistry involved in their training was probably the fermentation process of their post-workout drinking habit. And yet, despite the lack of synthetic aids, these athletes managed to achieve remarkable feats of strength and build physiques that were admired around the globe. Their chests, while not ballooning to the proportions seen in the golden and modern eras of bodybuilding, were powerful and well-defined. They were chests built by lifting heavy, not by pharmaceutical intervention. Now let's get into the meat of it. Why does the lack of steroids matter so much? Well, anabolic steroids facilitate a higher rate of protein synthesis, allowing muscles to recover and grow faster and larger than they naturally would. This means that athletes using steroids can not only build muscle at an accelerated rate, but also recover more quickly from their grueling workouts. In contrast, the natural athletes of the Bronze Era had to rely on their body's intrinsic capabilities, which, while impressive, had their limits. This difference in approach resulted in a different aesthetic. The Bronze Era physiques were more about balance and proportion, reflecting the classical ideals of beauty. Their chests, though strong and muscular, were not the supersized billboards of muscle we see today. Instead, they were part of a cohesive whole, contributing to the athlete's overall symmetry and aesthetics. In short, the absence of anabolic steroids in the Bronze Era significantly influenced the development of bodybuilder physiques, including their chest size. Our Bronze Era heroes were sculpting their bodies with what nature gave them, guided by discipline, hard work, and a deep respect for the ancient ideals of physical beauty. Number 4. Lack of chest-enhancing equipment and facilities. Now, let's talk about the crucial juncture that significantly influenced the physiques of our Bronze Era predecessors: the sheer lack of chest-enlarging equipment and facilities. This era, marked by its rudimentary approach to physical training, was devoid of the specialized gym apparatus we know today. The absence of equipment like bench presses and pec decks meant bodybuilders had fewer opportunities to target their chests with the precision and variety we see in modern routines. It was a time when gyms were sparse, and the concept of equipment designed for specific muscle groups was non-existent. The bench press, a staple in today's chest training arsenal, hadn't yet become the cornerstone of physique development. It's hard to imagine a world without the bench press, isn't it? Yet, for the strongmen of the late 19th and early 20th centuries, chest development relied on basic implements and sheer ingenuity. The evolution of the bench press into mainstream fitness culture was gradual. In fact, it started to change a little when George Hackenschmidt started popularizing one of the first horizontal weighted pressing exercises, the floor press. However, the problem with the floor press and its variations was that it didn't offer the benefits of a proper bench press that we know today. It's because the floor press had a severely limited range of motion and provides no stretch to the pecs. To unintentionally make floor press less impactful, many lifters started performing a belly toss variation. As expected, doing the hip thrust to lift the weight up meant the chest was doing very little work. In the absence of modern equipment, Bronze-era bodybuilders employed a variety of basic exercises to build their chests. They relied heavily on overhead presses, push-ups, and the rudimentary floor press, which, while effective, didn't offer the same targeted stimulation that modern chest exercises provide. The limitations of these exercises meant that achieving the prominent chest characteristic of today's bodybuilders was a far more challenging endeavor. Today, bodybuilders benefit from an extensive array of equipment designed to isolate and develop the chest muscles from multiple angles. Machines like the pec deck and cable crossover stations, along with various bench press variations, allow for a comprehensive approach to chest training. These innovations enable athletes to sculpt their chest with a level of precision and detail that was simply unattainable in the Bronze Era. Number 3. Physical fitness and athleticism were highly valued back then. In the times when the foundation of bodybuilding as we know it was being laid, the concept of physical fitness wasn't just about looking good, it was about being able to perform. This ethos has its roots deep in ancient civilizations, particularly the Greeks, who idolized the idea of a heroic body. This wasn't merely a body that looked strong, it was a body capable of extraordinary feats of strength, agility, and endurance. The Greeks believed in a harmony of mind and body, encapsulating the ideal of kalokagathia, which translates to the good, or kalos, and the virtuous, or agathos. For them, physical excellence was not just an aesthetic goal, but a moral one, emphasizing the importance of physical fitness in achieving a well-rounded and virtuous life. The ancient ethos significantly influenced the Bronze Era lifters, who didn't have access to the detailed scientific knowledge and nutrition we have today. Yet, they achieved remarkable physical feats, and their training went beyond mere muscle building. It encompassed a holistic approach to physical fitness. These athletes were not just strong, they were versatile, embodying the ancient ideal of a heroic body capable of performing a variety of physical tasks with grace and efficiency. The emphasis on functional strength and versatility in the Bronze Era also meant that bodybuilders of the time engaged in a variety of physical activities outside traditional weightlifting. Many were accomplished athletes in other fields, including wrestling, gymnastics, and track and field. This cross-training contributed to their overall physical development, allowing them to build bodies that were not just muscular, but also capable of impressive athletic feats. In essence, the Bronze Era bodybuilders were the embodiment of the ancient Greek ideal of the heroic body. Their training and physical achievements were a testament to the enduring value of physical fitness and athleticism. They remind us that bodybuilding, at its core, is not just about developing a visually appealing physique, but about cultivating strength, agility, and endurance that enable us to perform at our best in all aspects of life. Number 2. The sport was still evolving at the time. In the grand narrative of bodybuilding, the Bronze Era stands out as a pivotal chapter where the sport was still in its infancy, grappling with its identity and methodologies. This period was marked by an experimental approach to muscle development, as the community sought to understand and establish best practices. The quest for the muscular physique we celebrate today included the sculpted chest, was less understood, less prioritized, and indeed, in many ways, yet to be discovered. During these formative years, bodybuilding was more than a pursuit of physical excellence. It was a journey into the unknown realms of human potential. The athletes of this era were pioneers, navigating uncharted waters without the compass of scientific research or the extensive knowledge base that today's bodybuilders take for granted. Healthy body fat percentages, for example, ranged from 10 to 15%, reflecting a balanced approach to fitness that valued overall health and functional strength. The evolutionary path of bodybuilding during this time played a crucial role in shaping the sport into what it has become. Without these early experimenters and their willingness to test the limits of their bodies, bodybuilding might not have achieved its current status as a celebrated athletic discipline. These individuals were not just building their muscles, they were building the foundations of a global community, a shared culture that transcends borders and unites people in the pursuit of physical and mental excellence. The period's experimental nature meant that training techniques, nutritional strategies, and the overall understanding of muscle physiology were in a constant state of flux. Innovations were born from necessity and creativity rather than empirical evidence, leading to a diverse array of practices that widely varied from one athlete to another. This trial and error approach was instrumental in discovering what worked best for muscle growth and overall health, laying the groundwork for future generations to refine and build upon. Number 1. Their diet was grounded in simplicity and naturalness. One of the most remarkable aspects of Bronze Era bodybuilding was their approach to nutrition. Despite limited knowledge of modern dietary science, Bronze Era bodybuilders managed to maintain diets that supported their strenuous physical activities. It wouldn't be wrong to say that diet played one of the most crucial roles in sculpting the physiques of this period. In the early days of bodybuilding, the science of nutrition was as primitive as their training equipment. The concept of macronutrients, micronutrients, and the importance of a balanced diet for muscle growth was virtually unknown. These strongmen were pioneers in physical culture, but, let's face it, they were not exactly nutritionists. Their diets might not have provided the optimal balance of macronutrients, or proteins, carbohydrates, and fats, and micronutrients, or vitamins and minerals, required for maximizing muscle hypertrophy and reducing body fat to the level seen in contemporary bodybuilders. Nevertheless, they consumed plenty of meat, eggs, and milk, believing in the power of these foods to build strength and endurance. They were absolutely right, since they were relying on the inherent nutritional value of unprocessed foods. They understood the significance of a balanced diet in achieving peak performance, even if the exact scientific rationale was unknown. Thus, mindful eating beyond taste helped them reach their fitness goals faster. However, the understanding of how to optimize nutrition for muscle growth combined with exercises for developing prominent pectorals, recovery, and overall health were not as developed as today. So the lack of bulging chests in that era was due to a combination of dietary limitations, different training objectives and techniques, and the evolution of bodybuilding as a sport and aesthetic pursuit. And there you have it, folks. The journey through the Bronze Era of bodybuilding, unearthing the top 10 reasons why those legendary lifters had flatter chests compared to the mountainous pectorals we admire today. If you've enjoyed this deep dive into the history of bodybuilding, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more content, and ring the bell to stay updated on our latest videos. We're on a journey through time, fitness, and the endless pursuit of perfection. Your support means the world to us, and together we'll continue to explore the stories that shape our world and our workouts.